My wife turned our 15th anniversary into a courtroom before the appetizer even arrived. I knew it the second I walked into Marlowe's, the kind of white tablecloth restaurant in downtown Columbus where the lighting makes everyone look richer and the menu has no dollar signs because shame is apparently included in the price. I had expected 2 chairs, one for Lauren, one for me. Instead, there were 8 place settings, 6 strangers to our marriage already seated like a jury that had reached its verdict before I showed up. Lauren sat near the center in a champagne-colored dress, her hair pinned back, her smile polished so bright it looked practiced. Chase Donovan sat to her right, close enough that his sleeve almost touched hers. Melissa Grant was there too, quiet near the end, along with 2 of Lauren's work friends, a man from her sales team, and a woman I had only seen once at a holiday party. My chair was at the far corner, angled toward the kitchen, where waiters moved past with trays of steaks and wine glasses. That little detail told me more than Lauren's greeting did. People show you where they think you belong before they ever say a word. Daniel, she said, like my name was a formality. Not honey, not happy anniversary. Just Daniel, smooth and careful, the way a person says something into a microphone. I sat down, folded the napkin over my lap, and felt the gray envelope inside my jacket press against my ribs. It was not heavy. Paper rarely is. But some paper carries 15 years. Lauren started the evening like a woman hosting a client dinner, not sitting across from her husband. She talked about quarterly numbers, leadership retreats, wine country, and how life changes when people finally decide to grow. Every sentence circled me without touching me. Chase laughed at the right moments. The others followed because people in expensive restaurants do not always laugh at jokes. Sometimes they laugh at permission. I watched Lauren lift her glass and turn toward me with that soft, dangerous smile I had learned to fear more than anger. Anger still has heat in it. This was cold enough to keep. 15 years, she said. That is a long time to carry. Someone who stopped becoming anything. The table went still in that hungry way a room does when cruelty dresses itself as honesty. Chase leaned back, smiling into his drink. Lauren did not look away. Daniel is a good man, she continued, and somehow that made it worse. But good does not mean equal. At some point, you have to admit when someone has become dead weight. There it was, the phrase from the screenshots. The line she had promised them she would finally say out loud. My face stayed calm, but inside, something old and tired sat down. I did not shout. I did not defend myself. I did not remind her who paid the rent when she went back to school, who worked 60 hours a week fixing commercial buildings, who kept the lights on when her first sales job paid more in promises than checks. I only looked at the candle between us, watched the flame bend in the air conditioning, and thought how strange it is when a person uses your sacrifices as evidence against you. The waiter approached with the leather bill folder, confused because dessert had not come yet. I had asked for it quietly 10 minutes earlier. Lauren noticed it and frowned for the first time all night. I reached into my jacket, touched the gray envelope, and waited. She wanted witnesses. She had them. What she did not know was that I had brought mine too. The bill folder rested beside my plate like a small black door, and every second I left it closed made Lauren more nervous. She was used to controlling the temperature of a room. That was one of the things that made her so good at sales. She could make strangers feel seen, make executives feel smart, make a room full of people believe the idea had been theirs all along. I used to admire that about her. 15 years ago, I watched her practice presentations in the mirror of our one-bedroom apartment, barefoot on cheap carpet, wearing a blazer from a clearance rack in confidence she had stitched together by hand. Back then, she said I made her brave. She said knowing I would be there, no matter what, gave her room to become someone bigger. I believed that was love. Maybe it was, for a while. I was 28 when we married, old enough to know. Life was not a movie, young enough to think hard work could protect everything that mattered. I had a used Chevy Silverado with 200,000 miles on it, a toolbox in the bed, and a commercial repair license I had fought 3 years to earn. I fixed restaurant freezers, office lighting, warehouse doors, rooftop heating units in January, and air conditioning units in July when the tar-on flat roofs got soft under my boots. 60 hours a week was normal. 70 meant something had broken at the wrong time. Lauren never complained then. She would meet me at the door with takeout, kiss the sawdust off my cheek, and say, "There is my man who always shows up." That sentence could carry me through a 12-hour day. It could make cold coffee taste fresh. It could turn exhaustion into purpose. When she wanted to finish her business degree, I picked up weekend calls. When her car needed a transmission, I sold a base boat my father left me and told her I never used it anyway. When she cried over student loans and said she felt behind, I sat at our tiny kitchen table with a calculator, 2 yellow legal pads, and a promise that we would figure it out. Not she. Not me. We. That was the word I built my life around. We moved 3 times in 5 years, each place a little better than the last. The first apartment had water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that hissed like it was angry at us. The second had a balcony just big enough for 2 folding chairs. The third had a parking spot, and Lauren acted like I had bought her a mansion. On our 5th anniversary, we ate burgers at a roadside diner outside Dayton because a snowstorm closed the restaurant I had booked. She laughed so hard when the waitress brought us pie with 1 candle in it that people turned to stare. I remember thinking, if this is what poor looks like with the right woman, maybe I am the richest man in Ohio. But success changes the lighting around people. It does not always change who they are. Sometimes it shows who was waiting underneath. Lauren climbed fast after she joined the pharmaceutical sales team. New clothes, new circles, new words, networking, optics, executive presence, brand alignment. She stopped saying I worked hard and started saying I worked with my hands, as if hands were something to apologize for. My boots embarrassed her. My truck embarrassed her. The way I ordered iced tea instead of wine embarrassed her. Little by little, I became a detail she managed instead of a husband she respected. Across the table, Chase raised his glass like he had earned a place in our story. Lauren smiled at him, then glanced at the bill folder near my hand. She thought I was about to pay for everyone again, because that was what I had always done. Absorb the cost. Keep the peace. Make the room comfortable for people who made me small. I opened the folder, took out the check, and looked at the total. $812.40. 15 years of marriage, reduced to steak, wine, and witnesses. I placed 3 crisp $100 bills beside my plate, enough for my meal, my drink, tax, and a generous tip. Then I slid the rest of the bill toward Lauren, slowly enough for everyone to see. Her smile tightened. Chase stopped laughing. I touched the gray envelope in my jacket again, and for the first time all night, Lauren looked like she understood the evening had a second host. Lauren stared at the bills beside my plate like they had insulted her louder than any words could. For years, money had been one of the quiet ways I apologized for being ordinary. I paid before she reached for her purse. I covered dinners where her colleagues forgot I was sitting there. I added tips big enough to smooth over the way she corrected my pronunciation of wine names. It was easier to pay than to explain why it hurt. Men like me are taught to be useful before we are taught to be loved. Fix the sink. Start the truck. Carry the boxes. Pay the check. Keep smiling when the room treats your patience like a lack of self-respect. But that night, with the candlelight flickering across Lauren's champagne dress and Chase watching my hand like he was waiting for a magic trick, I finally understood something simple. Paying for disrespect does not make you generous. It makes you trained. Lauren's voice came careful. Daniel, what are you doing? Not angry yet. Careful. She was calculating whether the others had noticed the shift. Of course they had. Melissa looked down at her lap. The man from Lauren's sales team cleared his throat and reached for water he did not drink. One of the women gave a small, nervous laugh that died before it became sound. Chase leaned back, but his eyes stayed on the bill. That told me he had expected a different ending. Maybe he imagined me standing up too fast, saying something rough, proving the version of me they had built in advance. Maybe he imagined Lauren crying softly while he played the calm professional beside her. There is a whole industry in making quiet men look dangerous once they stop being convenient. I had seen the first draft 3 days earlier. It came from Melissa at 6:34 in the morning while I was parked outside a strip mall pharmacy, waiting for a repair manager to unlock the back entrance. My coffee had gone cold in the cup holder. Rain tapped the windshield. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I expected a work order. Instead, there was a message from a woman who had barely spoken to me in 5 years. Daniel, I am sorry. You need to see this before Friday. Below it were screenshots from a group chat called Quarter Queens, the kind of name Lauren would pretend was ironic even though it was not. At first, I did not understand what I was looking at. There was Lauren's name, her little profile picture from a company retreat, her words glowing on the screen like a confession under glass. Friday is when I finally say it out loud. 15 years of carrying him is enough. Chase replied, make him walk out. Then you have your story. Another message from Lauren followed. If he leaves first, nobody can say I did this. I sat in that truck for 10 full minutes while rain slid down the windshield in crooked lines. I remember the smell of cold coffee, wet asphalt, and the rubber floor mats I had bought because Lauren hated mud in the truck but never rode in it anymore. I did not feel rage. Rage would have been easier. Rage gives a man something to do with his hands. What I felt was recognition, like hearing a song you forgot you knew. Every little comment, every public correction, every dinner where Chase appeared by accident, every night Lauren came home smelling like hotel soap and expensive lobby air, all of it lined up behind those messages. A story needs structure. Apparently, so does betrayal. I saved the screenshots 3 times. Phone, cloud, thumb drive. Then I called Mark Ellison, the attorney my brother had used when his business partner tried to bury him in paperwork. Mark did not ask me how I felt. Good lawyers do not start with feelings. He asked what I could prove. That question steadied me better than sympathy ever could. Over the next 3 days, I gave him what I had. Shared account charges. A hotel receipt 20 miles from home on a night Lauren said she was at a leadership mixer. Messages from the family tablet that synced before Lauren realized it. Calendar entries. Emails. Nothing dramatic alone. Together, they formed a wall. By Friday afternoon, Mark had prepared a separation filing and told me the same thing twice. Do not confront her unless you are calm. Do not threaten. Do not perform. Let the proof speak before anyone else writes the ending. So I folded everything into a gray envelope and placed it inside my jacket before leaving for dinner. Across the table now, Lauren looked at that jacket like she could hear the paper breathing. The restaurant had changed shape around us without moving an inch. A few minutes earlier, it had been Lauren's stage, warm lights, polished glasses, careful laughter, everyone arranged exactly where she wanted them. Now the table felt narrower. The air felt thin. Even the candle between us seemed to burn lower, as if it knew the night had shifted. Lauren looked from the $300 beside my plate to the leather bill folder in front of her, then back to my face. She was searching for the old Daniel, the one who would soften first, the one who would mistake public peace for private love. I knew that man. I had been that man for a long time. He was not weak. He was tired. There is a difference. He believed a husband should absorb the awkward moments, smooth over the sharp edges, give the woman he loved room to come back to herself. But sometimes people do not come back. Sometimes they turn your patience into furniture and sit on it in front of company. Lauren set her glass down with a delicate click. This is not the time, she said. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because she had chosen the time. The guest list, the seating, the insult, the audience. But now that the script had slipped out of her hands, suddenly timing mattered. Chase leaned forward, his voice lower than before. Daniel, maybe take a breath. I looked at him then. Really looked. Chase Donovan was the kind of man who looked expensive from far away and borrowed up close. Crisp white shirt, designer watch, confidence polished like a rental car. He had been circling our life for nearly a year, always appearing in Lauren's stories as if coincidence had a company badge. Chase said the funniest thing at dinner. Chase knows the best lounge near the airport. Chase thinks you should really upgrade that truck. His name had become a stain that kept showing through fresh paint. I never confronted Lauren about him directly, not at first. I asked normal questions. How was the client dinner? Who all went to Cleveland? Why did the hotel charge show up on our shared card if the company covered travel? She always had answers. Smooth ones. Answers with no corners. The kind you cannot grab onto until later, when you realize the truth was not hidden. It was just moving faster than your trust. Lauren's work friends watched me now with the nervous stillness of people who had laughed too early. Melissa kept her hands folded in her lap, and when our eyes met, she looked away with guilt written across her face. Not shame exactly. Something more useful. Confirmation. She knew I knew. She knew Lauren knew I knew. And for the first time that evening, the witnesses were not Lauren's anymore. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the gray envelope. No one spoke. Paper should not silence a table that fast, but certain envelopes have gravity. I placed it beside the bill folder, directly in front of Lauren. Her eyes dropped to the handwriting on the front. For the woman who wanted witnesses. The color drained from her expression slowly, like someone lowering a dimmer switch. Chase saw it too. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. Men who rehearse other people's humiliation rarely prepare for evidence. Lauren touched the envelope but did not open it. "What is this supposed to be?" she asked. Her voice had gone soft, but not gentle. Soft like ice before it cracks. I kept my hands flat on the table. "It is what you asked for." The man from her sales team shifted in his chair. One of the women whispered Lauren's name. A waiter approached, saw the stillness, and wisely turned around. I could hear silverware from other tables, laughter from the bar, the low jazz through the speakers. Life kept moving around us, indifferent and well-dressed. Lauren leaned closer. "Do not do this here." There it was again. Not do this. Do not do this here. Not because it was false. Because it was visible. I thought about every anniversary before this one. The diner pie with one candle. The cheap apartment with a card taped to the refrigerator. The year I came home late from an emergency repair and found Lauren asleep on the couch in my old sweatshirt, a gift bag on the coffee table, and a note that said, "I am proud of us." That note was still in a shoebox in my closet. I had kept it because some part of me kept waiting for that woman to walk back into the room. But the woman across from me was not lost. She had chosen her way here step by step. I pushed the envelope a little closer. "Open it," I said. Chase's chair creaked. Lauren looked at him, and for the first time all night, he gave her nothing. No joke, no rescue, no confident little nod, just silence. So she opened it. The first page slid into Lauren's hand, and the room watched her face learn the truth one line at a time. It was not dramatic at first. That was the strange thing about proof. It does not need thunder. It only needs to be clear. Her eyes moved across the screenshot Melissa had sent me 3 days earlier, the one where Lauren had written, "Friday is when I finally say it out loud. 15 years of carrying him is enough." Then Chase's reply beneath it. "Make him walk out. Then you have your story." Lauren stopped breathing for half a second. I saw it in her shoulders. Chase saw it too, because his confident little smile disappeared like someone had turned off a sign. Melissa closed her eyes. The sales team man leaned back from the table, suddenly very interested in the water glass in front of him. One of the women whispered, "Lauren," but Lauren kept reading. The second page was the hotel receipt from the north side of Columbus, 20 miles from our house, dated the same Thursday night. She told me she had a leadership dinner that ran late. 1 room, 2 breakfasts charged in the morning. Company card declined. Shared account used instead. Not a crime. Not a movie scene. Just a receipt. A dry little piece of paper that carried more weight than all the speeches she had made about needing space. Lauren's fingers tightened around the page. "This is not what it looks like," she said, but her voice had already stopped believing itself. I did not answer. I had promised Mark Ellison I would let the document speak. So I did. The third page was an email thread between Lauren and Chase from an account she forgot had once synced to our family tablet. Nothing graphic. Nothing I needed to describe. Just enough words to make the shape of the betrayal impossible to deny. Plans. Timing. References to the dinner. A line from Chase that said, "If he reacts badly, it helps your case." That sentence changed the table more than the hotel receipt did. Betrayal hurts. A setup chills. There is a difference. Betrayal tells you someone wanted something else. A setup tells you they were willing to turn your pain into a tool. Lauren flipped to the next page too quickly, like speed could outrun meaning. It was the draft separation filing Mark had prepared, clean and formal, with my name at the top and hers beneath it. No emotion, no accusations shouted across linen, just the beginning of a life being divided by paragraphs. Her mouth opened, and for a second I thought she might apologize. Instead, she looked around the table, searching for the room she had owned 15 minutes earlier. It was gone. Chase was staring at his napkin. Her friends would not meet her eyes. Melissa looked like a person who had finally stopped, carrying someone else's secret. Lauren turned back to me. "You planned this," she said. I nodded once. "After I found out you planned me." That landed. Not loudly. Cleanly. Chase shifted in his chair. "Daniel, this is private," he said. I looked at the envelope, then at the people Lauren had invited, then back at him. "It was private when you wrote it. It stopped being private when she made it dinner entertainment." No one laughed. The waiter returned with the card tray, noticed the money by my plate, and hesitated. I handed him the $300. "Mine is covered," I said. Please keep the change. He nodded with the careful professionalism of a man who had seen too many anniversaries end badly and wanted no part of this one. Lauren looked at the remaining bill, then at the pages in front of her. For years, she had trusted me to cover the cost before anyone noticed. Tonight, everyone noticed. I stood slowly and buttoned my jacket. The gray envelope sat open beside her wine glass, spilling paper like a verdict. You wanted witnesses, I said. Now they know why I am leaving. Lauren's eyes filled, but the tears came too late to rewrite the script. I picked up my keys, stepped away from the table, and left her with the bill, the proof, and the silence she had earned. The first thing I noticed outside was the cold. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind that cuts through a coat and makes a man curse under his breath. Just a clean Ohio cold that settled on my face and reminded me the world had not ended inside that restaurant. Cars moved along High Street. A couple laughed under an awning across the road. Somewhere behind me, Marlowe's kept glowing like nothing important had happened under its gold lights. That is the strange insult of heartbreak. The world does not pause for it. It keeps pouring wine, running traffic lights, playing soft jazz through expensive speakers while your life folds itself into a gray envelope on a white tablecloth. I walked to my Silverado without looking back. Every step felt measured, not because I was strong, but because I knew one wrong movement could become part of Lauren's story. Angry husband storms out. Bitter man humiliates. Wife. Unstable reaction at public dinner. I could already hear the phrases she wanted to hand people. So I gave her nothing useful. No slammed door. No raised voice. No scene on the sidewalk. I unlocked the truck, climbed in, and sat with both hands on the steering wheel while the dashboard lights came alive in soft blue. The cab smelled like old leather, wintergreen mints, and the faint metallic scent of tools in the back seat. Honest smells. Mine. My phone started buzzing before I started the engine. Lauren. I let it ring. Then Chase. That one almost made me laugh, but the sound died in my throat before it became anything. Chase had nothing to say to me that would improve the night. Then Lauren again. Then a text. Come back inside. We need to talk. I stared at those words until the screen dimmed. We need to talk was what people said after they had finished performing and wanted privacy for the cleanup. Another text came through. You misunderstood everything. Then another. You had no right to show them. That one told me she had not found remorse yet. Only exposure. I set the phone face down in the cup holder and started the truck. The engine turned over with that familiar low growl, steady as a dog that still knew its owner. I pulled away from the curb and drove through downtown Columbus with the restaurant shrinking in my rearview mirror, a bright little square of a life I no longer belonged to. At the first red light, my hands began to shake. Not much, just enough to tell the truth my face had hidden. I gripped the wheel and breathed through it. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The same way I taught myself on rooftops in July when the heat came off the tar in waves, and quitting would have cost somebody their walk-in cooler by morning. A man learns to keep working while discomfort speaks. Tonight was no different. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was Mark Ellison. I answered on speaker. Are you out? He asked. Yes. Did you threaten anyone? No. Did you touch anyone? No. Did you pay your portion and leave the documents? Yes. He exhaled, not with relief exactly, more like a man checking off boxes on a form that could save me. Later. Good. Drive home. Do not answer Lauren. Do not answer Chase. Send me any messages they send you. Tomorrow morning, we file. The word tomorrow landed heavier than I expected. Tomorrow meant this was real. Tomorrow meant the envelope was not just a moment at dinner. It was a door. Once opened, it did not close politely. I thanked him and ended the call. The road widened as I left downtown, city lights thinning into gas stations, office parks, and dark neighborhoods where families were probably watching television in houses that still believed in themselves. I thought about going home and seeing Lauren's coat by the door, her makeup on the bathroom counter, the anniversary card I had bought, but never given her sitting in my desk drawer. I had written one line inside it before Melissa's message arrived. 15 years, and I would still choose us. At the next light, I closed my eyes for 1 second and felt how much that sentence hurt now. When I opened them, the light turned green. I drove on. Behind me, Lauren had the audience she wanted, the bill she did not expect, and the proof she could not laugh away. Ahead of me, our house waited in the dark, and for the first time in years, I was not rushing home to fix something for her. I was going home to stop breaking myself. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, except for the porch light Lauren always forgot to turn off. It threw a pale circle over the front steps and the welcome mat she had ordered from some boutique catalog because the old one looked too blue in photos. I sat in the truck for a minute before getting out, staring at the windows like they belonged to a stranger. 15 years of marriage does not disappear when you expose the truth. It waits for you in small places. Her coffee mug by the sink, her running shoes near the garage door, the blanket she kept folded over the couch even though she never used it. The life we had built still had her fingerprints on it, and that was the part nobody at the restaurant could understand. Proof does not erase grief. It only stops the lie from driving. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The alarm beeped once, then settled. The air smelled faintly like lavender cleaner and the roast chicken I had made 2 nights earlier, the one Lauren barely touched because she said she had eaten at work. I hung my jacket on the chair instead of the hook, then remembered the gray envelope was no longer inside it. That empty weight hit me harder than I expected. For 3 days, the envelope had been a secret pressed against my ribs. Now the secret was out, sitting on a restaurant table beside an unpaid bill and a woman who had planned to turn me into her excuse. I walked to my office and opened the desk drawer. The anniversary card was still there. Cream paper, blue ink, my handwriting across the inside. 15 years, and I would still choose us. I read it once. Then I set it on the desk without tearing it. Some things do not deserve drama. They deserve witness. My phone buzzed again. Lauren. Then Melissa. I answered Melissa because she had earned that much. Her voice came quiet, swallowed by background noise from the restaurant. Daniel, I am sorry. I sat down slowly. For what part? She went silent, and I regretted the sharpness as soon as I heard it leave my mouth. She had not made Lauren do anything. She had only pulled a curtain back. For not saying something sooner, she said. For laughing along sometimes. For acting like it was harmless when I knew it was not. That landed in a place I did not expect. People think betrayal is one person with a knife. Usually, it is a room full of people watching someone sharpen it and calling it none of their business. Thank you for sending the screenshots, I said. You did the right thing. Her breath shook. Chase left right after you did. He told Lauren he could not be involved in a public mess. She asked him to stay, and he said he had an early flight. I looked at the card on my desk and felt nothing for Chase. Not anger, not envy, not even satisfaction. A man like that was never the foundation of anything. He was weather, loud for a season, gone when the roof started leaking. Is Lauren still there? I asked. She is in the restroom. Her friends paid the bill. Of course they did. Not Chase. Not Lauren. The room she invited had carried her out of the consequence she tried to hand me. For now, Melissa, I said, do not call me again tonight unless it is urgent. Send anything else to Mark Ellison. She agreed, and the line ended. I sat in the office with the phone in my hand while the house made its normal night sounds. The refrigerator clicked. The heat pushed through the vents. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard settled. Ordinary sounds. Loyal sounds. I opened the bottom drawer and took out my wedding ring box, the same one from 15 years ago, black velvet worn at the corners. The ring on my finger had felt heavy all night, but removing it felt heavier. I twisted it slowly, not as a gesture of hate, but as an admission that love cannot survive as one person's evidence and the other person's performance. I placed the ring inside the box beside the anniversary card. Then I forwarded Lauren's texts to Mark, took screenshots of the missed calls, and typed one message to her because silence needed a boundary. From now on, contact me through my attorney. I stared at it for a full minute before sending. When it delivered, the house seemed to grow larger around me. Not emptier, larger, like I had been living in one corner of my own life and had finally stepped into the room. At 6:15 the next morning, I woke up in the office chair with my neck stiff, my shoes still on, and the house washed in the dull blue light that comes before sunrise. For a few seconds, I forgot. That is how grief protects you at first. It gives you one clean breath before it hands the truth back. Then I saw the ring box on the desk beside the anniversary card, and the night returned in one piece. Lauren's smile, Chase's silence, the gray envelope, the bill folder, the sentence that had finally cut through 15 years of excuses. My phone was face down near the keyboard. I turned it over and found 32 missed calls, 19 texts, and one voicemail from a number I did not recognize. I did not open Lauren's messages. I forwarded them to Mark without reading because he had told me not to feed the fire. But the unknown number had left a transcript preview. It was Chase. Daniel, listen, this got out of hand. I almost deleted it. Then I remembered Mark's voice. Save everything. I saved it. The coffee maker in the kitchen started by timer, grinding beans into the quiet like the house still believed in routine. I followed the smell down the hall. On the counter, Lauren's favorite mug sat upside down in the drying rack, pale green with a tiny chip near the handle. I had bought it in Asheville on our 10th anniversary after she said hotel coffee tasted better in a real cup. I took it from the rack, held it for a moment, then set it back. Not everything has to become a symbol, but in an empty morning, everything tries. At 7 sharp, Mark called. He had already reviewed the texts. His voice was calm, clipped, and awake in a way only attorneys and farmers seem to manage. We filed today, he said. The screenshots establish intent. The receipt and email thread support your position. The restaurant witnesses complicate any attempt to claim you acted irrationally. You did exactly what you needed to do. I looked through the kitchen window at the frost silvering the backyard grass. It does not feel like I did anything right. Mark paused. Doing the right thing rarely feels good at first. It usually feels like removing your hand from something burning. That image stayed with me after we hung up. Burning does not always look like flames. Sometimes it looks like a beautiful woman at a dinner table smiling while she turns your loyalty into a punchline. Sometimes it looks like paying bills so nobody sees the cracks. Sometimes it looks like staying quiet for so long people mistake your silence for permission. At 8:30, Lauren came home. I heard her car before I saw it. The soft crunch of tires on the driveway, the engine cutting off, then nothing. No quick steps. No keys in the lock. Just waiting. I stood in the hallway, not hiding, not rushing. The front door opened slowly. She stepped inside wearing the same champagne dress under her coat, her makeup tired, her hair less perfect, her face carrying the kind of exhaustion expensive restaurants cannot soften. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The house seemed to listen. Her eyes went to my left hand. First, the missing ring did what words had not. She looked toward the office, and I knew she had seen the ring box on the desk from where she stood. Daniel, she said, and this time my name sounded human. That almost hurt worse. I kept my voice steady. Mark filed this morning. Her shoulders moved like the words had weight. I did not think you would really do it. I believed her. That was the problem. She had thought my love was a fence with no gate. Something she could lean on, climb over, decorate, and still call home. I did not think you would either, I said. She looked down, and for 1 second, the woman from the diner in Dayton flickered through her face. Then she whispered, Chase left. I nodded. I heard. She waited for comfort. The old Daniel would have offered it before she asked. He would have hated seeing her humiliated, even by the man she chose to stand beside her. But that man had spent 15 years confusing compassion with self-erasure. I did not move closer. Lauren's eyes filled. I made a terrible mistake. I looked at the anniversary card on the desk behind me, the one that still said I would choose us. No, I said quietly. A mistake is forgetting a date or burning dinner. What you did had planning, witnesses, and a backup story. The tears fell then, silent and too late. Outside, morning light touched the windows. Inside, I finally understood that proof had not ended my marriage. It had only revealed that Lauren had ended it long before I arrived at the table. Lauren stood in the hallway with tears on her face, and for the first time in years, I did not feel responsible for drying them. That was the part that made me feel both free and terrible. Love does not shut off like a light switch. It leaves echoes. It leaves habits. It leaves your hand wanting to reach for someone even after your mind knows the reach will cost you. She looked smaller in the morning than she had at the restaurant, not because she had changed, but because the audience was gone. No Chase beside her. No work friends waiting to laugh. No table arranged like a trial where I was supposed to be the defendant. Just Lauren, standing in the house we had once tried to make a home, facing the one thing she had not prepared for, me believing the evidence more than the apology. Can we sit down? She asked. Her voice was careful now, stripped of all that polished confidence. I nodded toward the kitchen table, the same table where we once planned bill payments with a calculator and 2 yellow legal pads, the same table where she opened her first promotion letter, The same table where I had sat alone 3 nights earlier reading screenshots that turned 15 years into something I could barely recognize. We sat across from each other, and the distance felt bigger than any restaurant. Lauren folded her hands around the pale green mug with the chipped handle, but she did not drink. I was angry, she said. I felt stuck. Chase made me feel like I still mattered. I listened. That was my oldest mistake and my last gift. You did matter, I said. You mattered so much that I kept confusing your unhappiness with my assignment. Her face changed, not dramatically, not enough for a movie, just enough for the truth to enter. I continued before she could soften the moment. I fixed everything I could touch. The cars, the bills, the apartment, the house, your loans, your bad months, your career gaps. I thought if I kept showing up, we would survive. But you were not asking me to show up anymore, Lauren. You were asking me to disappear slowly enough that you would not feel guilty. She looked down at the mug. Outside, a school bus hissed to a stop somewhere down the block. Ordinary life, moving right past the wreckage. I do not know who I became, she whispered. I believe that too. People rarely become cruel all at once. They make small trades. Gratitude for entitlement. Privacy for applause. Honesty for a better-looking story. One day, they look in the mirror and call the person beside them dead weight because admitting he was the foundation would make the betrayal impossible to forgive. My phone buzzed. Mark. A text this time. Filing confirmed. I set the phone face down. Lauren saw enough to understand. Her shoulders lowered. No fight left. Maybe no lie left either. What happens now? She asked. I looked at my left hand, at the pale band of skin where the ring had been. Now we let the lawyers handle the paperwork. You can arrange a time to get what is yours. We do not turn this into another performance. She nodded, crying silently, and for once I did not hate her for the tears. I hated that we had spent years walking toward this table without either of us admitting the floor was giving way. An hour later, she packed a small overnight bag. No dramatic speeches. No slammed doors. Just the soft sound of drawers opening and closing upstairs. When she came down, she paused by the office and looked at the anniversary card on my desk. She read the line I had written before everything came out. 15 years, and I would still choose us. Her hand covered her mouth. I did not move. That sentence belonged to a version of us that had died before I knew to mourn it. At the door, she turned back. Daniel, I am sorry. I nodded once. I know. Then she left. After her car disappeared, I walked outside and sat on the front step with coffee cooling in my hands. Columbus was waking up around me. Tires on pavement. A neighbor dragging a trash bin to the curb. Cold air moving through bare branches. Nothing cinematic. Nothing victorious. Just mourning. I thought about the bill she had been left with, the proof she had opened, the witnesses who could no longer pretend they had only heard a joke. But mostly I thought about the words she used and how wrong it had been. I had not been the weight. I had been the hands under it, carrying more than any one man should. By the time the sun cleared the rooftops, I understood something that felt like grief and mercy at the same time. Leaving was not me abandoning the marriage. It was me finally stepping out from under what had already fallen.